So I want to welcome you to the fourth workshop of the semester, which is telling your stories with infographics, creating graphics in Adobe Illustrator. So I kind of want to ask you a few questions before we start, and I did prepare um, files for you guys so you can download it here. But in a way, you don't need to use most of the files, but you can use like some of them. And I did prepare kind of a PDF that tells you more or less what we're going to do in the class. So before we start, I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about who you are and what you take, and talk a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in this seminar.
So my name is Tosha. I'm doing SPR program, and I'm a graduate second-year student. And I'm graduating this May. And I worked in Illustrator last semester, like a year ago, because we had a class. And I need improve my skills because I'm gonna have a com exam for my final. So I needed to do some infographics.
Yeah.
So my name is Yana Ling, and I'm from China. And this is my first semester in the US, in the USC, and also in the US. I had some experience in Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop and After Effects. And during my undergrad study, I study computer science right now. But my undergrad major is digital media technology. And so I created some little games during my undergrad, and I still want to learn something about graphics, design, and so on.
Great. Yes. And
I'm Andrea. I'm an undergrad studying communication, and I've recently gotten into design because I was working. Well, the job that I was in was wanting me to take on a role of like a graphic designer, and so I figured I would learn as much as possible.
yeah, great. So a little bit about infographics, and then we'll dive into Illustrator. Of course, it's not going to be like a complete stuff in Illustrator, but we're going to do stuff that's important to create certain graphics. So what you see here, I do have a PDF that I prepared, and these samples that you see here, they were plain samples that were done directly in Illustrator. And then let's talk a little bit what is kind of like infographics. And it's basically graphical representation of stories that uses visual communication to replace lots of text. So a lot of people sometimes will do stuff and they're gonna put a lot of text and a little graphics, and that's not gonna be a good infographics, or they're gonna be, so kind of like the graphics have to tell part of your story, which is a little bit tricky. So the question is also, how do you start with it? So some people call it like information and graphics, and that's what they call it, infographics. I just saw that some people refers to it as explainographics, that explain the stuff that you have. So what I have here, I just gave you, I gave you links here for a website that I always go to it, and it's called the Killer Visual Strategies. It's a Killer Infographics. It's a place actually in Seattle, and they have some step-by-step stuff about graphics and also case studies. Because the thing is, it's kind of hard to start doing a case study in a class like this now, because you never know what you're going to do. But let's say you need to do a case study about, let's say, no water in California, right? So you're gonna have to go to a database and find a lot of stuff about why you don't have water in California, and then you're gonna have to maybe even interview people. So you might have even infographics that's gonna be like moving, and videos and things like this, and interactive, and then you're gonna start using some kind of graphics to depict the story that you have. So in this class, we're not gonna start doing the research, because if that was a class that was 12 weeks in the whole semester, of course, it's gonna be like phase 1, research. Let's choose a story and let's all go home and start doing the research. But basically, do I have here, it's 5 things to consider. Think about the text, not too much text, and then that too much text might be the wrong way to go. Prioritize your goals. So what does it mean? You want to have an infographic that doesn't have more than 2 or 3 goals. You don't want to have it what are you depicting, what's your story, and then you don't want to start like selling the product and marketing the product too. So it's going to start being stuff that people are not going to pay attention to it. So people doesn't have a lot of patience to start reading and doing all kind of stuff. So a lot of time the information has to be fast and really clear, and then a good content. So 50% of it is the graphics. They have to be good content of graphics, and of course the correct data. So what does it mean? You cannot just go into all kind of little things that you see even on Facebook or Wikipedia. You have to go in and see, is that a true data for this story? Because it's going to be really dangerous if you're going to do a whole assessment of a story, and then somebody, your teacher, will tell you, well, I checked out one of the data, that's not really true. Where did you get it from? So you're going to have to show people where you're getting from the stuff. So you might want to go into these links later and start seeing how do they do their case study. They're really a great place to learn the stuff. So here I'm just going to do like sample infographics, and this is just from Adobe stock. They look kind of silly because I chose on purpose different kind of things to have. It's anything from a hand to a handshake to two people hugging. The reason I chose these guys, but they all were done in Adobe Illustrator. So you can also go in, instead of knowing all the way, I mean, you can always go to another source and go to Adobe stock and bring some stuff here. And this one is another page that's about 7-best storytelling infographics. So if you're gonna go to this link later, you can see a lot. They're gonna go case by case study. The choice of 7 of them. I just did a screenshot of that. And then in the screenshot, they're telling you why the story is okay, why is it not okay. But you can see here, this infographic over here have some kind of nice graphics, not so much text. I would even take some of the text away from here, you know, but like this one has too much text a little bit, and this one a little less. I just did a kind of a screenshot from it. So all of the stuff that I have here, I linked it to the PDF, so you can go directly into it and then see the stories. And once I started investigating it, it's basically was so much information, I didn't know which one to choose, because everybody has their little point of view, but I chose from all of them these 2 sides because I thought they're really kind of like good and depicting the right story that you have. And then of course we're going to jump into Adobe Illustrator, because that's the whole idea here. So what I want to show you over here is, maybe we have time to look at just drawing shapes and text and glyph, creating some symbols, and looking at what a symbol is in Illustrator, because it's super important for infographics, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about a pathfinder and a compound, maybe the shape builder tool, and if we have time, we'll look at the chart and the graphs within Illustrator. The thing is, it's great, but there's a lot of stuff there that needs to be better a little bit in the future. And then because I kind of wanted to dive into different areas, I was thinking I want to give you some information about Illustrator in general. So what I did over here, I just did a link here, and that will take you right away to a very long tutorial about Adobe Illustrator. And it's basically step by step on Adobe Illustrator and all the topics. So you can go to it later and start looking about what I'm talking about. Of course, in 2 hours, we're not going to cover everything, but you can see here the step by step. It is a link. You can go in and share the link with yourself and all kind of stuff like that. I created it in Adobe InDesign, and I used a feature called Publish Online, which is something for you later on, something that you want to investigate a little bit, because if you do a presentation later also in InDesign, let's say you do graphics in Photoshop and Illustrator and then put it in InDesign, and you want to create just a link instead of bringing like a PDF with you, that's what happened here. It's basically nesting on in my cloud, because it's a link there, and then you can go back and forth, and then you see it's 122 pages. So if I emailed it to you, it might be too heavy. If I send it with everything here, maybe it's too much. But here, it's not heavy at all because I'm hosting it. So there's something for you to take a look later. Look at kind of like, it's called Publish Online in InDesign. It rhymes also. Okay, cool. And then all this, you have that. I have kind of like only 5 pages here, which I try to make it kind of concise, and that's where you have a lot of links and not too much information. And with that said, I'm just going to go in and launch Illustrator. And I want to ask you which version of Illustrator you guys are using.
I have
2020? Do you have 2020?
Yes, so yeah.
Yeah.
I'm using 2019.
2019. The truth is, 2019 and 2020 in Adobe Illustrator, it's almost like identical. We have like 2 or 3 little features that were there and you barely see them. In the future, you'll see a lot more changes. So I think that 2021 is going to be more robust and it's going to have the new features. And another thing is I wanted to mention that Illustrator is coming out with Illustrator on the iPad. And I'm going to send a note to all of you. Everybody is registered and I'm going to put it on the Facebook page and everything, because I'm creating a meeting March 23rd. It is in Santa Monica, but somebody from Adobe is coming and gonna show and features all the new features with Illustrator on the iPad, and you get to see a lot of people and mingle and see that. So you should look at the Facebook soon and see that. So you can see here I have Illustrator. That's kind of like I turned off the welcome screen. Why did I turn off the welcome screen? Because sometimes it bugs me. So in Illustrator, if you go to Command K or Control K if you're using Windows, you see your preferences file in general, and then you can decide to disable your home screen, and basically this is what I did. I don't want to see the home screen, and some people like to see it in the beginning because they get some information. What we're going to do right away is basically can go to a workspace that will be comfortable for all of us to work, and then we're going to look at the drawing tools. We're going to look at shapes, and we're going to look at the compound path, and we're going to look at the shape builder tool, and then we're going to start together to create some kind of symbols. And then we might even take a symbol that exists, and I'm going to tell you how can you not cheat but make it your own. So not everybody knows how to draw everything. I don't know it either. So I will go online, get a picture of something, figure out if I like it or not, see if I can get some inspiration and make it my own. So we're going to do some things like this, but we're going to use the Illustrator tool to make it helpful. So what's helpful in Illustrator? It's using the shapes in the beginning and using the transformation tool. And then the other one that's so important in Illustrator is also like they have one thing that everybody is using, that everything that you can do it again and again. So it's called transform again, and I'm going to show you how this feature is working. So what I prepared in the files, if you do file and open, if you have my files, in a way you don't have to have my files that much, but by the way, I do have the PDF in the files that I gave you. I did have something says creating symbols. I have something with image trace. There's a little project if we want to do like something, but I want to go into the area that says I do have also sample icons over here, and then what I have here is stock samples, and then also what I have here is creating symbols. So double click on creating symbols and look what we have here. So let's say I'm not going to open any of the symbols for now, but let's say you want to do some of these symbols that you see in front of you. They look kind of like maybe crazy and maybe too much, or some of them maybe it's an easy way to work with. We're going to take few of these symbols, and then we're going to pretend that we are going to create some icons for us before we start doing some other stuff. So I'm going to cancel out of it. And then what I want you to do is to do File and New. And we're just going to look at few tools first, and then we're going to jump into creating these little icons. And then if you need to work later, based on that, you can do little things. So let's say we're going to do one icon that we call it radiation. So if your, let's say, research is going to be something about, I don't know, radiation and all kind of stuff like that, so you might need to do different symbols that look like this. We're going to take only one of them. So the idea is you do the research, you get the information that you want to, and then you're thinking about the graphics that coming in, and also you always want to think about the colors that depicting the story. So if you do, let's say, something about radiation, maybe you're not going to use all kind of pastel colors, because that gives you like an idea of being very relaxed and having fun. So maybe you find maybe boldy colors that are going to say, well, this is a situation that's going to work for us. But if you do something, let's say a story about some kids, so maybe you do like colorful colors and images that not going to be like scary. So you're not going to put some crazy images, and that's why I put these two kids hugging and things like this. So what I'm doing here, I'm going to open a file new, and I'm just going to do it 8.5 by 11. And I'm just going to go all the way to the right side, and I'm going to call it shapes. And then you can see here on mine I have 4 artboards. Why do I have 4 artboards? Because the last time I did something, I probably used 4 artboards. Not necessarily you need to do that. We can start with one artboard and then we can move into other artboards. So what does it mean in Illustrator artboards? You can have up to, I think, 1,000, bless you, artboards in Illustrator nowadays. And then you can just then do a presentation before you're doing. So basically, if your infographics in the beginning just going to be a sturdy infographic, not interactive, you can do all the wireframing and almost everything in Illustrator to start with, and do a presentation to the person that you want to present, and then once it's okay, maybe you're going to start doing the other stuff. With that said, why am I mentioning it? Because there's another we're going to have another workshop, I think in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, about Adobe Xd, which is actually a prototyping software for doing apps and all kind of stuff. But let's say you guys are people, maybe you don't need to do apps, but what else do you want to do? Maybe you want to do a presentation. You started in Illustrator because you're more comfortable, and Xd understand Illustrator artboards. So then you can go to Xd and kind of animate it. So let's say for me, that's my workflow. For what reason? I'm better in Illustrator so far than in Xd, and also I don't like the graphics features in Xd as much. I'm very comfortable with what I'm doing in Illustrator. So that's something for you to look in the future. These artboards are compatible for Adobe Dimension and Adobe Xd. So you can do your everything here and then move it back to something that's going to be more interactive. So I'm going to create one artboard now. And why did I mention the whole talk about it? Because the way you leave Illustrator, that's the way you would do the new one. And if I didn't pay attention, I'll have 4 artboards in front of me. So we're going to just do create. How many of you use the Illustrator shapes already?
Like before?
Yeah. Yeah. Did you use it before a little bit?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So what I'm going now here, all the way up in my control, I'm going to go to my layout workspace. And you're going to see in my layout workspace, I have my panels that I'm going to be comfortable to work with, which has character, paragraph if I need to do text. I also have the align panel, the layers panel, the artboard panels. But on the left side, what I have, it's actually I have a toolbox that doesn't have all the tools that I want to use. You see, the toolbox is really, really small. And why is that? Because in this version, and also I think in 2019, you have a small panel and a big panel. It is confusing a lot of people. So let's go to Window and let's go to the toolbar. And let's go to the Advanced toolbar. So do you see here I have a lot more tools right now. So the first thing, we're just going to look at simple. Let's say we're going to create a square, which is going to be really simple. And we are going to do some transformation tool with it. Then we're going to look at the rotate tool and we're going to do some transformation with it. Then we're going to look at our circle tool and see what else can we do with that in terms of infographics, and then we're going to look at how we're going to reshape everything that you have. So I'm going to go just to my rectangle tool. And I'm just going to click one time on the screen, and I'm going to make it 3 by 3. And I see it on the screen, and I can go to my properties panel, and in this case I don't see the properties panel in the layout workspace. So I might go to window and bring my new properties panel, and then it's hiding somewhere here, but this is my new properties panel that by default shows you with everything that you have. I don't know if you're familiar with the properties panel, but by default right away it shows you the appearance and the opacity, and even you can jump directly to the effect of this file that you have.
Where did you get it? I'm sorry.
So if you don't have it here, I went to window and I found it in the properties. I mean in the window menu bar.
Okay.
I pulled it out. Why? Because the layout did not have it right now, and I chose to have the layout. A lot of time I'm going to make my own workspace, and of course I'm going to go in and include that. I like to use it now because you can see the appearance, you can see the fill and the stroke. You can jump directly to here to see what kind of stroke you have, and then you can say the opacity. So let's go and click on the fill. And this is your generic, let's say, swatch panel. So let's say I want to start working with reds. So I'm going to click on this red right now. But now I want to go in and create a different kind of red. Because what if I'm going to do a little symbol, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about things that connect to each other. I'm going to do a symbol that's going to be very simple, and you're going to do it in the entire presentation, and you decided on certain colors, and it's going to be red and light red and all kind of stuff like that. And then your advisor or you yourself or an art director said to you, listen, everything looks great, but we decided on a new palette of colors, and instead of this red, it's going to be kind of like yellowish. So if you have all the stuff around, you can make it into symbols too, but if you do something called global colors, all the colors are going to go and change for all the stuff that you have. So how do you make a global color? I'm going to go to the flyout menu of my swatch panel, and I'm going to say new swatch. And this is, I'm going to get the new swatch panel over here, and you see here I'm going to make it global. You can make it not global, or you can make it global. I can even go in and bring it to my library if I want, and I can click OK. So now I have like a new library, and it went in there. It is a global color. So I want to go in and maybe create also some tints to it, because maybe you want to work with different kind of reds for that. So you can go again to your swatch panel, and I might go and bring it over here, and then I might bring my color panel. So this is my regular panel, and what I want you to see right now, because it's global, do you see the triangle here? That tells you it's a global color. Does that make sense? I can go to my color panel, and I'm going to say show option, and maybe I'm going to go in here and I'm going to make that 80% tinting. And then I can drag and drop it over here to my panel, and I have a tint of this red. And then I can go back and make it maybe 60%. And then I can drag and drop it here, and that's going to be a 60% of this red. Does that make sense? And then maybe I even can go like maybe 40. And then I'm going to go back here and put it over here, dragging and dropping it. So now basically what I have the regular red, and I have different kind of tints to it. I can select the 3 of them or the 4 of them and put it inside a folder and call it red tints. So maybe that's going to be the colors that I'm going to use for certain things. Does that make sense? So, and you can do it more and more to everything that you have. But what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to select that. One thing I want to do with this one, I want to go in and look how we can rotate it. So we all know that we can select it, right? and then we can go to Object and Transform and go to the Rotate tool. That's simple one. I'm just going to go in, let's say, to the Rotate. And then in the Rotate tool, I can go into Preview, and whatever I'm going to do, I can see some kind of rotation. So let's say if I rotated it, let's say 90 degrees, and then I'm going to go in and look at it. So you can see over here, I'm going to do it actually 45 degrees because it was 90 degrees. I have that, and all of a sudden this is a diamond. So what if for the symbols that I want to create later, I want to have the regular rectangle and I want to have also this diamond. So all what I need to do in this case is click copy. So look what you have here. I have that and I have that. So do you see here, I already have two symbols that I made it in one thing. I just rotated it. Does that make sense? I can select one and hold on the Option key and let's say go in and duplicate it. And then go into the other one and put it somewhere here and then maybe give it a different color. And all of a sudden it might be a beginning of a new effect or something that I'm going to do. So that's something really simple. All what I did one rotation to something that I did. But what if I wanted to go and create something else with the Rotate tool? I'm going to go into this diamond and I'm going to hold on my Option or Alt key if you're using Windows, and I'm going to do another copy. And I'm going to hold on the Shift key and I'm going to make it a little smaller. And I might actually make it green. Now I want to go and rotate it again and maybe change colors. So I'm going to go to the Rotate tool in this case in my toolbox. So double click on the Rotate tool. If you click on the letter R, it will take you to the Rotate tool. So all what I need to do is double click and look what happens. The dialog box opens, and what is the dialog box remembering? The last things that you did. So it says to you, this is the preview, that was before, and now this is the new one that you're gonna go and have. And it goes to its own center by default. If I click copy, that's what I get. If I change the color, I might get something that looks like this, and if I do transform again, edit, go into Object, transform it, transform again, it might transform it again one on top of each other, which doesn't make any sense right now because it's one object on top of each other, right? So now we're going to do a little exercise with this transform again and with this Rotate tool, kind of pretend to create something. So I'm just going to go and move this one here and move this one here, and then I am going to move this one here, and I'm just going to go and make from them something in a minute, and that's why I am not actually deleting them, because we don't have a lot of time. I want to show you transformation, I want to show you shapes, and I want to show you how you create a symbol from them and how you go in from there to do other stuff. So I want you to go to your Ellipse tool. And it's over here where you have the rectangle tool. And if you don't see some of the tools, just let me know and I'm going to guide you to see over here where they are. So the Ellipse tool actually has a shortcut. I'm going to try to use my tablet over here. And it doesn't want to do it. Okay, no problem. The Ellipse tool has a shortcut, which is the letter L. And then what I'm going to do now, I'm going to click and drag a small ellipse. And if I'm looking at the sizes, and if we all want to do it more or less the same, my width was 2.5 and my height is 0.6. Where do they have it? It's inside when you see the rectangle tool. You have a rectangle, round rectangle, and ellipse.
Oh, okay.
So what I did here, I just basically made the ellipse 0.6 width height, and the width is 2.5. It's just 2.5. So if later on I'm gonna click with the ellipse tool on the screen, basically this is what I did. I'm gonna make it a little bit better. 2.5 by 0.6. See, that's the same idea. Now what I want to do is I want to select that, and I'm going to zoom into it, and I can see over here on my screen that the fill is orange, green, and the stroke is black. I want the fill to be red, and I do not want to have a stroke. So I'm going to go to my properties panel, and I'm going to go to the stroke, and I'm going to say none. I just don't feel like having any stroke right now. And then I am going to go in and do something. I want to rotate it, but I don't know what I don't want to, I can first rotate it. I can do it one on top of each other, or I want to rotate it to another center. So if I want to do it, rotate it to its own center, I'm going to double click on the rotate tool. And look at now, I have the rotate tool at 45 degrees. I'm going to make it 36. Click on the preview, it's going to do that. I'm going to click copy. Do you see I have a copy exactly to the center? I'm going to look at the properties panel, and I'm going to fill it with the next tint. But now I want to have another ellipse like this to the same center, and I'm going to change the color, but I don't want to work so hard. So in Illustrator, you can go to Object, Transform, Transform again. Look what happens. And then I can go back here and do this color. And then Object, Transform, Transform again. Do you see the shortcut? It's Command D or Control D. Basically what this is doing is taking anything that you have and transform it again. So I'm going to do it one more time. And the last one, I maybe want to make it the dark red again. So basically, look what I have on the screen. I just have a group of ellipses, and that can be any tool that you have, and they transform to their own center. If you select all of them, you can see if you add to it a stroke, you can see how they interact with each other. You can even group them if you want, and that's going to be some kind of a object icon or something that you created based on the color we just made. Does that make sense? So the transform again also work a little bit different, and that's what I like to work with it. I'm going to go to this ellipse, the top one, and I'm going to hold on the Option or Alt key, and I'm going to, actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it here. I'm going to select the new flower I just made. Just select it. I'm going to go to Object, and I'm going to group it. Why is it important to group stuff in Illustrator? Because it's going to be a lot of objects after a while. So Object, Group. Now I'm going to hold on the Shift key, and I'm going to make it a little tinier. I'm not going to worry about anything at the moment because I don't have a stroke and I don't have round corners, so I can rotate it as much as I want. Now I want to go and rotate this little symbol now, maybe around another center. So how would you do that? You're going to go to the Rotate tool and look at the default. The default of the Rotate tool, where is the center going? To its own center. I'm going to choose another center right now. I'm gonna hold down my Option or Alt key and basically click somewhere outside of it, like this. And I have a dialog box opening and showing me the preview. It used to be here, but if you do it 36, it might jump here. If I wanted to do a copy, I'm gonna make it copy. And now, if I want to do another copy, Object, Transform, Transform again. And look what I'm getting. And all of a sudden, look how fast you can do stuff that looks like this. Could be some kind of an icon for something that you want to do without even thinking about tracing, looking at something. We did it absolutely with two things, two transformation tools. Does that make sense? So that's kind of like all the tools work like this. What does it mean? If I'm going to select that and object and group, that's going to be a group over here. What does it mean all of them work like this? If I'm going to, let's say, this rectangle or diamond and put it over here, and instead of rotating it, I'm going to click on the letter S to go to the scale tool, and I basically double click on it. And I'm going to scale it uniform 80. And you see, it shows you how you have it. And I'm going to click copy. And then I'm going to go in and go into another color. And transform again. And then just going to go back here and do another color. And transform again. Command or Control D. And then maybe I'm going to do another color. Does that make sense? So all of a sudden, look what I have here. I have these little diamonds, and they are, what are they? They are a bunch of squares one on top of each other that I made them smaller to the center, copy them, and change the color. Does that make sense? Now you're going to say, well, I want to go further with it. So let's go in and create something from this stuff. So what if you needed to go in and put this stuff somewhere and you want it to be repeated anywhere that you have? So we're going to go to our outward tool. And as soon as I'm on the outward tool, look what it tells you. Outward one over here. Later on, you can go in and name it and everything like that. But for now, we're not even going to bother it because we're just preparing. If you go to the Add New Artboard all the way up in your control, or even if you go into your property, you can create an empty artboard. That you see here that the property has it. Also, you have it all the way up in this control. Does that make sense? Let me know if you see that. And that's why I do like to work a lot lately with the properties panel, because immediately it's going to show me what to do. With the outboard tool, I can of course create the presentation later, but I also can bring some images to one place to another. So let's say I'm going to select these little rectangles, and I'm going to hold on the Option or Alt, and I'm going to bring it here. And for now, I'm going to go Object and Group. That's all what I did. So let's say it's going to be a situation, and we're going to do it later with other stuff, that this little symbol, for some reason, has to be all over your presentation. In this case, it's just a regular symbol. But later on, we're going to do something that's going to look more normal. One way of doing it in Illustrator is going to your Symbols panel. You don't have your Symbols panel in the Layout workspace. So we're going to go into Window. Oh, we do have actually. No, we don't. I don't think I have it. I don't have the layout. Okay. So I'm going to go to Window, and I'm gonna go in and bring my symbols panel. Let me know if you see it. And then I'm gonna go back here and bring it over. This is my symbol panel. And look what I have there. By default, you have symbols. So the first thing that we're gonna think about, because we're thinking icons, what are symbols in Illustrator? Basically, symbols are a bunch of shapes that are together, can be grouped or not grouped, but when they become a symbol, your machine will recognize them. It's kind of like one blob of shapes together. So it doesn't take a lot of memory in one hand, certain of them, and also it will enable you to go back and forth and change stuff with the symbols. There's two kinds of symbols in Adobe Illustrator. One of them is a symbol that is going to be dynamic, and one of them is going to be non-dynamic. And it is important which one you want to use and for which things that you're going to do. We're going to do a regular symbol right now. So this is the regular symbol panel. I don't even need this. That's a sample. I can even go back here and look what you have here. Different kind of symbols already. You see I have arrows, I have 3D, I have textures, I even have charts. Just little charts that you can start working with them. And believe it or not, if you go back, you have communication, you have different kind of thing. A lot of them are not really great, but some of them you might need them to use all kind of stuff. Look at this one, flowcharts. So we're going to look at it a little bit later and see, do we want to use them or do they look too ugly for us, and what can we do with them to make them a little bit better, right? So everything is here and you can start. That's another organization chart. What if you need an organization chart and if you don't like that and all? But the first thing we are going to do, we are going to go in and make a symbol from this one. So I'm going to go, I can drag and drop it to the symbol panel, or I can say new symbol. Do you see that? And I can tell you, I use symbols all the time for a lot of stuff. Even when I have to not change anything, but let's say I did a whole drawing in Illustrator that has a lot of anchor point and it's really heavy and it's hard to redraw it, I will make it into a symbol so you don't see the anchor points and it redraws a little faster. I can unsymbol it later if I need to, but for printing it might help me. So what do you have here in the dialog box? You have something that says movie clip and graphics. Basically nowadays it's not important. It's going to be either one. Where this is coming from? Years ago when Adobe still was developing Flash, so you could have done a symbol within Illustrator, make it to a movie clip, and it will come to Flash with all the data and it's going to work perfect there. Since we're done moving into Flash, I don't know why they're not changing it. They should change it and take it away because it is confusing people. I just go in and make it graphics. What we're going to look and we're going to call that squares. But now we're going to make that static symbol. And then we are going to go in and click OK. And look what you have over here in your symbol panel. All of a sudden, look at your image. You have a little center there. And let's say now you're going to say, I kind of want to change the color. You cannot go to it right away and change the color. Why not? Because you don't see the anchor points. If you're looking even at your layers panel, and I'm going to go back here and looking at that, this is the symbol. Look at that. I don't see all the four squares one on top of each other. It's one area only. So what can you do with symbols? And we're going to open something in a minute and play with it a little bit so you can see how it works really. I'm going to hold on the shift key and let's say even make it smaller. That's fine. It still remembers the original size. If I really want to make it really small and make it remembering this size, I'm going to go in and click and even drag it to the symbol panel, and then I'm going to call it small square. and make it static, and doesn't matter which one, and click OK. So the symbol panel knows which one is what. Does that make sense? I'm going to go to the small one. All what I want you to do is go in, and maybe you want to go into your rotate tool again. Option or alt click somewhere in the middle of the center, and then go in and make it 45 degrees and copy and transform again. Command or Control D. Basically this is what I did. This one, it's not a symbol, it is combining assortment of symbols together. And let's say you put it all over for something, and even you have text inside and tells you with arrows, this goes here and this goes there, and all of a sudden it's all over the place and you really don't like it. You just said, well, this is not really what I wanted to do. Does that make sense?
I lost.
Okay, so did you go make a symbol?
Yeah, I just used the. I just
It's
used
okay.
the flower.
That's fair. Perfect. So now go here and hold on the Option key, and let's say click here. You do reflect console. Go into the rotate. It's inside. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so
And then,
option.
Option click. Yeah, go back here. Click on that. Option click here. Let's say whatever. Yeah. And now let's say do it 45. Click copy. And then object, transform again, or Command D, or Control D. See that?
Okay.
Command or Control D. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Oh.
Yeah. Perfect.
I could locate this.
Okay, you have that, and move it a little bit down a little bit so you can see that.
Yeah.
And then go to the rotate tool, and then you have Windows, right?
Yeah.
And cancel this one,
Okay.
and then go in and Alt click. Let's say here, whatever you do. Let's say here,
Oh, okay.
and then say copy.
Oh,
And then transform again. Control D, Control D, Control D until you get something.
thank you.
So you can do it, basically you're going to say, can I do it with images? Absolutely. You can even bring a little thumbnail of, let's say, a person holding something, a sign that you want to tell a story, and you want them to rotate in a certain way. Whenever you put your anchor, it goes. And transform again will do that. But what I did that now, I kind of want to change. Let's say I want to change the colors. I can change the colors now. Why? Because it's all made from symbols. So you can select one of the symbols, and look what I'm doing. I'm going to double click on one of the symbols. And this is what you get. You're about to edit the symbol definition. Any edits to the symbol will be applied to all the instances that you do. Do you want to continue? I can say do not show it to me again and click OK. So basically this is what you have now. Do you see everything is grayed out? And the machine wants you basically to go only to that and start changing. So I grouped it before, so that's why I select everything, but I can go to where my direct selection tool, and I can go to the group selection tool. And then I'm going to select the red one over here, and then I'm going to go back here and change the color, because you can see here, oh, it doesn't, I mean, I actually have to double click on it again to edit the symbol. Do you see all the way up in your control? Do you see the word edit symbol? Click edit symbol and look at that. And I'm going to select one, and then I'm going to go into my swatch panel when I see it. Let's say where my swatch panel here kind of disappeared for me. So I'm going to go into my swatchy. Okay, I'm going to go into my swatch panel, and then I'm going to make sure that this one, let's say it's green. And I'm going to select this one, the next one, and I'm going to say light green. And I'm going to select this one and a lighter green. And maybe this one and very light. And all what I need to do is escape. And look what happens. look what happened on your screen. What do you see now? It's a different symbol. Do you see that? Different colors. So this is the power of symbols. They kind of connect to each other, and then when you select one, you're gonna go in and
What was the last?
the one
What was the last move? Like
The
after changing
escape.
color?
Escape or double click on your screen, and that's it. It's still a symbol. Does that make sense? So I can go in here and you can do different kind with symbols here, but if I want to edit it again, I'm just gonna go into the center, and then I'm gonna go in, and let's say now I just made the center red. Look what happens now. Do you see all the symbols are changing because they are connected to each other? Does that make sense? So let's talk about it, because now you're gonna say, well, I like it, but I don't like it. Because if all the symbols have to be the same, absolutely is perfect. If you have a sign, if you have something that you want to do, it's all good. But if you have something that doesn't have to be perfect all the way, maybe there's other ways to do it. So what does it mean? What if I did something like this, and this, they all have to be changed, but this symbol, I don't want to change it. So because we made them as regular symbols, I'm going to go in and look what I have in my control here. Do you see the word break link? I'm going to break the link. So what happened when I break the link? This is not a symbol anymore. So if I'm going to go in and select one and click on that, and select this one and click on that, basically look what happens. The other are not changing, because this one is not a symbol anymore. If I want to re-symbol it, I'm going to have to drag and drop and bring it back to the symbol panel. Does that make sense? So basically, if you do something and you play, you're going to go in and do all kind of stuff and create something with it. So let's do a little exercise with the symbols that we have. We're going to leave this file as is, and we're going to open something. I want you to go into File and Open. And we are going to open my folder, if you have it. I don't know if you guys have it or not. And then I have a stuff that have over here something with map project, and I'm going to double click on it, and then there is something that says USC changing global colors. Double click on it, and then I'm going to zoom out to show you what I have there. And what I really want you to see in here, this is already done, and it was like kind of like a map project. We might do some stuff like this on top of it in a second, just to go in and make sure that we know how to use the symbols. But before we're doing it, I wanted you to look at your swatch panel. Look what you have in your swatch panel. How does it look? It has all colors. All the colors are global colors. Do you see that? Then if you go back to your symbol panel, look what you have in your symbol panel. You have different kind of symbols there, and this is what I want to show you, because that's what we are going to create in a second. You have a symbol that has a plus on it. Do you see that? Do you have a symbol that has nothing on it? Do you have another one that has nothing on it? Another one that has something different? And all these guys have some kind of pluses on them for some reason. So what's the difference between them? Some of them are regular symbols, and some of them are dynamic symbols. So I'm going to do here, first of all, we're just going to play for a second. Just double click on the blue global color. Just double click. and just click on the preview and just start changing some stuff. So if you're gonna go in and click, if that was a blue that I changed and used before, it will change the stuff that I have. In this case, it didn't change so much stuff because maybe I didn't use this blue, and maybe this blue was part of a symbol. But basically that's were global colors. What I want to do now is kind of pretend that we don't have any of the symbols in our map. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go in and select the symbol and delete it. I'm going to select the symbols in my map and delete them, because we are going to create something. And I'm going to see a little bit more. And of course I could have selected in one shot if I can select for all, but basically this is what I have here, and I might go in and even delete that and delete that. So if I don't want these guys to be here now because I'm doing something new, right, I'm going to go to the flyout menu and say select all unused, and you see all the unused symbols are there, and click, and I have no symbols. Basically I have one in a house because maybe somewhere in my stuff here, yes, I can see I have a house. And I'm not going to pay attention to these guys, and I'm going to go in and take it away, and maybe goes this. No symbols whatsoever. And I might go back here and delete that. So all what I have right now is my two artboards. I have one artboard that has a map, and I have another artboard that I'm going to start doing some stuff to create a symbol. Something as simple as you get. So I'm going to go in and we're going to create together a symbol. So I'm going to zoom into the second artboard. And I'm going to go to my rectangle tool, and I'm going to click and drag a rectangle. And I don't want to hold on the shift key, so I made it something like 0.3 by 0.6. So I'm going to say the width is 1.3 and the height is 1.6, something like that. And I'm going to go in and fill it with the dark color. That's it, this one. And I'm going to zoom into it. Now I want to add some stuff to it. I'm going to pretend that I'm making a little house. There's a lot of symbols of little house, but we're going to do one. So I'm going to go to my star tool. And then I can actually click one time on the screen, and I'm going to make the star with 3 points only. So it's going to look like something like that. And I'm going to go to the star tool and I'm going to rotate it. And I might make it a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to put it something on top of the other house. And I might make it a little bit bigger. And maybe a little tighter over here. Whatever you want to do, just create something that kind of looks like almost like a little house. I might make this one a little smaller so it doesn't look so crazy. But look what I did here. It doesn't look great because this star here and the square are not actually centering. So I'm going to select the two of them. And I'm going to go all the way up in my control. Look what I have. I have my alignment tool. And I also can go into my properties panel. So I'm going to go to my properties panel and look what it tells me. That's the align. And I want to align it to the selection. And these are the alignments that you have. Horizontal aligned, look what it did. It made it center to center. Do you see that? Not vertical because it's going to be to the center. Now I want to make it into one object. How would I do that? In this case, what is it? It's two objects. Does that make sense? So I want you to go to your toolbox, and then I am going to go to my toolbox, and it is my advanced toolbox, and I want to go in and click on the shape builder. Where is it? If you click on Shift M on your keyboard, it's a shortcut to your shape builder tool. In the PDF that I gave you about Adobe Illustrator, you have a cheat sheet about this toolbox, exactly how it is. And this is basically the shape builder tool. The shape builder tool has a few jobs. One job is to colorize areas that don't have a fill in them, that make it in different appearance. Another job is if you select the two of them and you hover over it, look, do you see the plus sign? I'm going to zoom into it a little bit more. Do you see a plus sign? Do you see a little mesh? Click and drag. What do you see now? It's one object. Does that make sense? And it's one color because of that. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to go into my rectangle tool. And I'm going to click and drag a rectangle, and I'm going to make it all the way down here, like maybe an opening. And for the sake of that, I'm going to make it a different color. If I want that to be hollow, I'm going to go first select the two of them, and then I'm going to go to my align panel, and then I'm going to go in and also make that horizontal center. So you see it's aligned center. If this one I don't want it to be a color, I can go to the shape builder tool, but instead of just clicking on it, I'm going to hold on the Option or Alt key. You see a minus, and look what happened. It's an opening. Whatever, I mean, if you felt like doing that. Now, maybe I want to go in and add some kind of an area over here. And I'm going to rotate it and just put it over here. And now again, I'm selecting, and I'm going to go to Shape Builder tool, and look at that. One shape. So I selected and made it one. I can also go in right now, and it looks kind of weird. So I'm going to say, you know what? How about I'm going to give it a depth a little bit. It doesn't really look good. It looks kind of awkward. So I can select that. And I can go to my effect menu bar. And that's something that you want to look at a lot. And you have something called 3D. Do you see it? It is not 3D. What it means that it's only a 3D effect. So if you know how to use 3D in Illustrator to use icons, you're not a 3D artist yet. You're just doing that. Click on Extrude and Bevel. And click on Preview. And look what do I have here. Do you see what I have now? I can go and change it a little bit. Remember how simple it looked? That's a little better, right? Kind of cuter. I can even go and make it a little bit deep. I can make it classic. I can make it all. Believe it or not, later, I can even put a symbol into it to make it a little more nice. I can map something inside. But for now, we're just going to do that. And then we're going to click OK. Because it's still just a symbol, guess what? If I select that, I can have this color. I can have this color, depending how I want my house to be. Do you see it?
Sorry, I got lost before the 3D.
Okay. I'm going to go back here and do a Command Z. Do you have the house?
Yes.
Like this, right?
Yes.
The 3D, you can find it either in your appearance panel over here. You have to select, and you can see here, you can have effect and 3D and extrude and bevel, or you can go to effect, 3D, extrude and bevel. And I can click preview, and I can even change the depth. If I don't want the depth to be so much, I can change it. You see, now it's like this, now it's like this, different kind of thing. What I'm trying to tell you, because it's an effect, you can change it, and it's gonna be a symbol, so you can change it again and again. Does that make sense? And then click OK. And zoom out. And now what I want to show you, before we're doing anything, I want to select this little house and hold down the Option key and duplicate him. So it looks almost the same, but the new one, we're going to make it orangey looking. Oh, you know what? We'll make it green. It's a little bit better. So I'm making two. And the reason I'm making two, because I want to show you how it works when it is dynamic filter or non-dynamic symbol. Does that make sense? So the brown one, let's all decide that it's going to be non-dynamic. So we're going to go into our symbol panel. And then, of course, I closed it by mistake, but I'm going to my symbol panel, and I'm going to select the brown one, and I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to call it non-dynamic, and you're going to see why it's non-dynamic, because you're not going to have a plus on it. And say static, or we call it static actually, static house. That's it. Do you see I have it here? You can even go to the symbol panel and say large view. I mean, you can make it large thumbnail. I mean, it doesn't do so large. It's okay. Let's select the next one, the green one. Drag and drop it over here and tell that to be dynamic symbol. And by the way, dynamic symbols take more space a little bit. And I have it here. So look at your symbol panel. In your symbol panel, one has plus, one does not have plus. Another thing also, you can spray symbols, and I'm going to show you how to do it also. But when you spray them, the both are the same. They're not the same when you copy them. So let's go in to our map. And we're going to select just the brown, the brown one, that it's not dynamic. And I'm going to go in and duplicate it and put it here. And I'm going to put it here, and it's too big. That's okay. And I'm going to put that here, let's say. And I'm going to go into the one that dynamic, and I'm going to put one here, and put one here, and put one here. And I'm going to zoom in. It looks like little houses. It was meant to be for the parking lot. You have the sample of the entire thing. You can do a lot of stuff with that. So I'm going to go in and say, let's say I'm deciding, and I said, well, I don't like this brown right now. So, well, I have to change it. So I'm going to say edit symbol. And I'm going to go to the one that I have there. And I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to change that, let's say, even to not the same. I'm going to change it to this color. And I'm going to double click, and look what happened. All of them changed. And I'm thinking, I wanted to change only the middle one. The others I wanted to be the same, but they're not dynamic, so they're all connected to each other. So the only way for me to not do it all together, select that and break the link, and it's no longer a symbol. And now I'm going to go back here and make it kind of grayish and look like this, and then I'm going to make from that another symbol. And this one is a symbol, and this one, and this is not anymore. When you have a dynamic symbol, it's not like that. What does it mean? You can double click here to go in and select that. And while you have it even selecting, okay, don't double click on it, just go to it. Let's say I want to select the center only. Because it is dynamic, you can go to your direct selection tool and select the house. The other one you cannot select it. And then you can go in and make that brown. And then if you double click, look what happens. This one is, they're all still symbols. But because they dynamic, they didn't change the other one. They're even gonna listen to you. What does it mean? If I'm gonna go to this one and I'm gonna double click and I'm gonna change this one to orange, and I'm gonna go select that and I'm gonna change this one to orange and double click, look at that. This one changed, this one changed, this one stays because it was dynamic and it was a local change. Does that make sense? So how do you deal with it? When you know you're gonna need to do few local changes, make it dynamic. People will say, why not always make it dynamic? It takes a little bit more memory because behind the scene it's really connected to the original, so the file is gonna be a little bit bigger. But most of the people do dynamic symbols nowadays, and that's why that's your default. You see that? It's your default right now. Whenever you go to any symbol, it's going to be your default. So let's say I'm going to go back here and go back here. I'm deleting this, and I'm going to make this one a little smaller. And this is dynamic. And I'm going to put it here. What if I want to spray it all over the campus here? I can go to my symbol sprayer tool. If you click on Shift S, it will take you to the symbolism panel. And you can go in, and if you go to the sprayer, I can go and do stuff like that. Do you see I have a chunk of houses now? But when you do that, even if it's dynamic, it will behave like a regular symbol. You can no longer click on the direct selection tool and say I want to select one. It doesn't do it. It will do it only when you duplicate. So if you wanted to change that, yes, you're going to double click, you're going to select this, you're going to click on that, you're going to double click. You see, now you have it here. So when you spray stuff, it is not going to do that. If I select it now, and then I can even go into another color, let's say to red, and I can go to the symbolism tool, and I have a symbolism stainer. I can actually start now staining one at a time. It doesn't do a good job so much because it's a dark one, but basically you can go in and stain the area that you have. It's still the same symbol. Does that make sense? So all the symbols are basically something that you want to go and play with. So let's create few symbols, and then we're going to go back to this map later for the define and see what other stuff that you can do with it. So what if you wanted to create something? I made a template for you. File and open. And if you go in to your main things, you can see here you have sample icons, and one of them I have a bunch of the samples already here. And then you have icon templates. Do you see that?
For some reason I can't open like that on the, here I'll show you.
I can come.
Oh. When I downloaded that it like opened up in my Google Drive, so like.
Oh, you have to take it from the Google Drive out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So now let's say I'm opening this template. I made this template. How did I make the template? If you're interested, I'm going to show you how I made it. But I'm just going to go in here and say sample icons. And you can see here it says icons template AIT. I called it template. AIT is Adobe Illustrator template. And if I open it, it's going to be an untitled file. basically, what did I do here? I have bunch of artboards. They are with the same size, and in these artboards, what I did, I created some kind of guides, and in the guides, I made some stuff in it. So it's really important how to do stuff like this. And you see in my layers panel, I have the background and I have the guide. So how did I do that? We can go File and New. And let's say we're not going to do so many. We're going to do and make it, the width is going to be, let's say 4, and the height is going to be 4 for the icon stuff. And let's do it, let's say only like 4 artboards. You can always add more. I'm not going to do any bleed because I don't have any bleed. I'm good. Does that make sense? And I'm going to click Create. This is what I have here. I have an artboard panel. I also have my layers panel. And what I see here, I want to create a guide. What does it mean? Sometimes when you present people some kind of icons before you do anything, you want to show them and you don't want to exceed maybe to the edge of the artboard. So we are going to go to our rectangle tool. And we're going to click somewhere on the screen and we're going to make it again 4 by 4. And I want to put it exactly on top of this artboard. That's it. And to the sake of that, I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to fill it with any color. I'm going to fill it, let's say, with red, so you can see it. And no stroke. None. Let me know if you have that. That's it. On one artboard. This is how I prepare sometimes my files to start creating icons and symbols.
Sorry, I don't.
Do you have 4 artboards?
I have like 6.
Okay, it's fine. All what you need to do is click on the screen and do a rectangle 4 by 4 with the size and put it on top of the first artboard. That's it.
Okay, there it is.
Now, I'm going to go into my transform panel. If you don't have it in your layout, go and bring your transform panel, and I can see I have it here. So I'm going to go and bring it out. I also have it all the way up here. I always have the transform panel in my properties. I like to have it here. Of course, I can do the math right away, but next to the letter, to number 4, you see I'm going to click on the 4 and I say minus 0.5. And next to the other 4, I'm going to say minus 0.5. You're going to tell me, well, you could have done another rectangle that's going to be 3.5 by 3.5. And the answer, of course, you could. But this one, just it's in the center. I don't want it to be a rectangle. I want it to be a guide. Guides are very important for you when you start creating any infographics later. Because you can align stuff to the story, you can align your graphics, you're going to do everything that you have to be part of the stuff that you have. Does that make sense? How would I make it into a guide? Go to the View menu bar, go to Guide, and say Make Guides. Do you see the word Make Guides? All the way down. You see that? View, Make Guides. And look what it did. It made a guide for me. This is something really important for you to remember. Remember this little infographic that I showed that had a little circle and things apply for it? Maybe they had an oval that was a guide and they put stuff on it and then took the guide away. So it's really good to align. Every object in Illustrator can become a guide and also can be released to be an object again. I don't want to lock it. What I really want to do is put it in all the artboards. It doesn't matter how many you have. I'm going to go to Edit and I'm going to say Cut. Do you see that? Edit and Cut. The artboard is basically gone, right? Then go edit and paste on all artboards. Look what happens. Now all the guides are on all the artboards. Does that make sense? Why did I do cut and not copy? Because it says paste on all artboard, so it's going to paste it only also in the first artboard, and it's really confusing. It doesn't tell you. I wish it said paste on all artboard except the first one, but it doesn't, so you cut it and paste on all artboards. Does that make sense? Edit, copy. Do you copy the guide?
I did.
Okay. Do you have the guide?
Yes.
Okay. Do edit, cut. First cut. Edit, paste on all artboards. Yes, and that's it. Now, this one, right now, they are all not locked. I like to lock guides in the layers panel because you can lock them one at a time. So I'm going to go into my layers panel and I'm going to call layer 1 guides and I'm going to lock it. Later on I can unlock it and all the guides, believe it or not, can become object if you want. But right now, look at this. The guides are locked. And I'm going to say new layer. And I might call the new layer background. You see my guides are red because I changed the colors of the guide. You can go to your preferences file and change the color of your guides. I just changed it to red. I don't know why, but you can change it. And look what I'm doing now. I'm going to go again, and this time I'm going to do a rectangle, and I'm going to make it 3.5 by 3.5. And I'm going to put it directly on the center of the guide. And I'm going to make that, let's say, cyan. And I'm going to go to the 4 dots, because I want to make it a round rectangle, and I'm going to push it in. So you see now it's a nice looking rectangle. I'm going to do the same thing. Edit and cut. Edit, paste on all artboards. And this is my background. And I'm going to lock it. And this is actually what I created in the template. You can create different kind of things. If you don't want later the guide, you can turn it off. You can do anything you want. Does that make sense? Now we are going to go and look at how we can make any kind of an icon based on the tools that we look. Like maybe the rotate tool, maybe a reflect tool, maybe. Are you good?
No, I'm lost. I just couldn't lock the layers and I got like lost there.
If you go, which layer? The guide layer?
Yeah.
Okay, so you had this based on all artboards, right?
I just did that.
Okay, good. Now double click again outside because you are isolated. That's why. Double click. Good. Now go in and lock the layer. Just lock it here.
Oh.
In between. Here, lock it. That's it.
Okay.
Now create a new layer. And then create a new layer. And then call this new layer background, let's say. And then click on the screen with the rectangle tool. Click one time and make it 3.5 by 3.5. No, it's just you have pixels. You have to do 3.5 inches. So the in with 3.5 inches. That's okay, 2, 4, yeah. Okay, and make it actually the size of the entire guide. So make it bigger a little bit. Exactly the size of the guide. Okay, and you see these little circles? Go into one of the circles and push it in.
Oh.
Yeah. And then change it to any color that you want. You can leave it even red, it's fine.
Okay.
So now do edit and cut. Edit, paste on all artboards, and lock the layer.
Okay.
and then create a new layer. So basically we created the little template that I have, and in this one I'm showing you how I created it. But now, let's say you have a project that you need to do some stuff, and yes, you got it from the internet, but maybe you want to make it look a little bit different. So maybe you're looking at different kind of references, and then you're going to say, maybe I'll do it in Illustrator. So I'm going to create a new layer, and then I'm going to double click on the new layer, and I'm going to call it references or images. And all what I'm going to do in this layer, I'm going to say file and place. The other layers are locked. And now I'm going to the files that I gave you, and then I'm going to go back here that you have creating symbols. And in creating symbols, you see different kind of symbols, and we might choose few of them. So maybe I'm going to say choose the code, and maybe I'm going to hold down my shift key, my command or control key, and I'm going to click on the fire, and then I'm going to click on no smoking, and then I'm going to click on radiation. I mean, these are stuff that it's from the internet. They're all like very low resolution, and you don't have to link them. In mine it was stayed linked because I did it before with links. I'm unlinking it. It's not gonna be, you don't have to go anywhere. It's gonna be part of Illustrator. And click place. And look what you have in Illustrator. If you place some stuff, you're gonna see the 4 images. And then you can go with the arrow key and see what you have. So I'm gonna go and click 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. They are really tiny. I don't really care. Why I don't care? Because I am going to go in and make them a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go select this one and make that, hold on the shift key, and make it kind of like bigger to more or less. And then if I want to kind of align it, it's going to be here. I'm going to do the fire, the same thing. Not all of them are the same color, size anyway. And I'm going to go and put it here. And I'm going to go and do that. And hold on the shift key and have it here. Basically what I have over here is images that I want to go in and trace. And I made them a little bit bigger. Why do you want to trace them? You cannot use them for your infographics because they are really, really pixelated. Does that make sense?
So we can draw, right?
What?
We can draw, like redraw.
Yeah, so now we can draw some stuff on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the layers panel and click on and select all of them in your layers panel. See, I selected the entire layer. And I can go to the flyout menu and I can say template. So look what happened when you template them. They become by default 50% transparent and they're locked.
Is there where?
Here, flyout menu, you can template or untemplate. You can also double click on the reference and make them even less transparent, maybe even more transparent, 30. It's basically almost like selecting them and making them completely transparent with transparency, and they're locked. So make sure when you trace them, they're on top. Then you're going to delete the others. So this layer is also locked. Now we're going to open a new layer. And then we're going to call it vector icons. So basically, you have all the presentation, you did a lot of stuff, you decided on colors, you did your research, you have your text and everything, because that's something more important than everything maybe. And then you start creating certain icons. You might create a lot of them and then use only 16. You might, might create some of them and look like each other and say, no, I'm going to go, because there's a lot of places that you can go in and retrieve some icons and not use your own. Or you can go in and trace some icons, and then change some stuff to it. So we're gonna go in and zoom into the first one. And the first one is really easy. Look at it. What is it from? It's from, actually looks like straight lines, and straight lines, and maybe some things are reflected and some things are maybe rotated. Because after doing that, I'm going to show you there's other ways to do it. You can go to the real Illustrator trace tool, image trace, but that will trace some things a little bit different sometimes. Sometimes good and sometimes not good, just depending. So how am I doing it? I'm going to go to the line tool. If you click on, click on the backslash, you go to the line tool. The line tool in Illustrator does not connect to each other. It just lines. So I'm going to go all the way up here and I'm going to say no fill and maybe a black stroke. And I'm going to make it 1 point only. And again, another thing is, because it is only a reference, you can make it your own. You can make a different variation. It doesn't have to be exactly like this. We're going to make it 3D. Why not, right? So I'm going to click over here on the top. One click, hold down your mouse, hold on your shift key and create straight line. One line. And I'm eyeballing it more or less to the center. More or less. That's it. And I'm going to open my layers panel and look what I have there. I have one line. Do you see that inside the vector icons? That's it. Now I want to kind of eyeball the other line, this one. That looks from one area to the other one. I don't know, it's not 45 degrees. Because if you hold down the shift key, it will be 45. This one is not 45. I'm going to click here, and if I hold on the shift key, it's this one. But I'm going to go in and maybe kind of eyeball it somewhere that I think the kind of like the angle is okay. Mine was like 213, and I made that. That's it. Now I have one. I want to make the other one exactly the same. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to my layers panel, and temporarily I'm turning off the bottom line. I'm just turning it off. On, off. Why? Because it's bothering me a little bit. Now while this one is selected, you want to go to where you have the rotate tool. You also have the reflect tool. You click on the reflect. You do not want to reflect it to its own center. You want to hold on the Option or Alt and click at the edge of the line. Do you see that? Just at the edge. One click. Do you see the dialog box is opening? Make it vertical. Do you see where it goes? That's vertical. Click copy. Do you see now you have the two of them? They look like that, right? Let me know if you have them. They look like a little flower that's opening.
The dialog box didn't open.
You have to option click. It's really, really finicky. Look at this. I'm selecting it first. I'm selecting it. Then I'm going to go into this one. Look at that. And then when I have it, option click on the edge, and then you have the dialog box. Option click. Hold on, and then you click and copy. And now you see two lines. Remember what we said about this line? The default, they do not connect. So I can select one line, hold on the shift key and select the other line. And then I can go to Object, Path, Join. Do you see what happened? It joined. Object, Path, Join. But now look at your bounding bars. It's kind of a little weird. So you can go to Object, Transform menu bar, and say Reset Bounding Box. So it looks like a normal one. And now I'm going to turn on the line. So I already started and saying, well, I have the top. More or less. I'm going to select these guys here. I'm going to reflect it again, but this time reflect it to the main object. So I'm going to go to the Reflect tool, Option, click somewhere in the center, or Alt click, click horizontal, and look what happened. It tells you that it goes somewhere. It doesn't have to go right away to the same area because you can move it a little bit. But if I click copy, this is what I have. So the bottom one, I want to align it a little bit. So I'm moving it a little bit. What do I have now? It starts looking like this little thing. I can say select all. Why I can do select all? Because everything else is locked. Object and group. And I can group it and make maybe, let's say, make the stroke 16. And then I'm going to make the stroke this time and maybe red. I mean, red is not nice, but maybe I'm going to make it dark blue. And now you're going to tell me I'm missing something because I have other stuff there. All what you need to do is go to your Rotate tool, double click, and find the right angle. And look at it. Maybe it's 57, maybe it's 60, looks pretty good to me. Copy. Object, transform, transform again. Look what happens. Now I have that. If I turn off my reference, look at this. It's going to look like this later. If I select all of them, object and group, guess what? Maybe I want to make it 3D. Effect, 3D, extrude and bevel. And I'm going to go back here, and this is a little bit too much, so I might go in and make that maybe 27, or maybe even just like 18. And look at this. I have a code sign that looks a little bit different. And maybe I even make it the depth even less. Maybe I'm going to make it only 10. Still looking good. Still 3D. Does that make sense? While I have it, guess what I'm going to do with it? I'm going to go to my symbol panel and I'm going to drag and drop it to the symbols, and then you make decision. Do you want to make it dynamic or do you want to make it static? I'm going to make it dynamic and I'm going to call it cold. And I have a symbol, and I also have something in my vector here. Believe it or not, I even take it to my Creative Cloud, and you can do anything you want from it. Because later on, it's still a symbol, so everything that you're going to change, you can change. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And then basically, it's going to look something like this when you start doing the presentation. How cool is that? So we have time to do another one. I'm going to click on the cold and lock it. And I'm going to turn on the reference. And let's decide which one we want to do. This fire is very simple. You can actually go and do that with your pencil tool and just draw around it and maybe do, a compound. But let's look at this one. I'm going to zoom into this one. And then basically I might go into my Ellipse Tool. And I might go somewhere to the center, hold on my Option or Alt, and click and drag a circle. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly. And you see my stroke is size 16. I might go into the stroke and make it a little bit different. But before doing anything, and it is a stroke, I might go to the stroke and change it to red. And then I'm going to go to the stroke panel. And at the moment the stroke is aligned to the center, I'm going to align it to inside. Do you see what happened if I align it to inside? It's basically make it a little bit more inside. Does that make sense?
Where do I find a line for this row?
The stroke. Yeah, you select that and you see here align stroke. By default is to the center, then inside, then outside.
Got it.
I put it inside. But now the thing is, because it's a stroke, you cannot really go in and combine it with other thing, and I wanted to combine it with another thing. So I'm going to go to the stroke and go to Object, Path, Outline the stroke. And what does it mean? When you outline the stroke, look at that. First, it's a stroke, right? When you go Object, Path, Outline Stroke, look what happened. This is basically a compound. This is basically a circle, and this is inside, it's nothing. And it became a fill. Now I can go in, let's say, to my rectangle tool. Or I can do the same thing with a line. I might even go into a line and click from inside here and do a straight line and make the stroke red and maybe make that size 16. When it is a line, you cannot change it. It's always in the center. Now moving it and doing the same thing. Object, Path, Outline Stroke. So basically this one looks like a rectangle, and this one is a circle with a punch hole in there. You're going to say, could I have done a rectangle and turn him around? Of course you can. So then it's fine. But now I'm selecting the circle and the line. Go to my shape builder. And I'm going to go in and make it 1. And look what I have. That's it. I have the sign already. Does that make sense? So now what I want to do, I want to do the one below. So there's two options for me in Illustrator. Either you draw it on top and bring it down, or there is a little command to tell you draw behind. It is a dangerous command, and I'll tell you why. Because once you tell it to go behind and you forget, it doesn't remind you. And sometimes I do it and I'm drawing and drawing, and then in the middle of things, why am I still behind? Because I did it for one thing and I didn't forget it. But I want to show you where it is. It's this one, the second symbol. Draw behind. And all what I want to do is do the simple cigarette. That's all. And I'm going to change that to dark. See, it goes directly. And then I'm going to go back here and I'm going to change that. And then basically duplicate it. I zoom into it. Hold on the Option key and duplicate it.
How do you do the draw behind again?
It's the middle symbol on your toolbox. And now I want to show you something very fun. It is, I'm going to go to my pencil tool, which is if you click on the letter N, you see the pencil. And I'm going to go just to a stroke. And I'm basically going to go in and maybe draw some kind of a line, something like that. And I might go with the pencil is, I'm going to go to the smooth tool and I can smooth it a little bit so it's a little cuter. But it looks nice, but it doesn't look like it has kind of a character. So when you have a stroke in Illustrator, you can go and change to it and make to it some kind of maybe a profile. And how do you do that? You're going to go to your toolbox and do Shift W. and that's the width tool. And everywhere you're going to click, you can start changing the width of your stroke. And then let's say I'm going to do that like this only. And then I'm going to do this one, little one. So let's say I want to have it some kind, you see it has a little kind of texture. I can select that, go all the way to my control, and click on the save symbol to add a profile. And that's going to stay there. So you can see I have different profile. Maybe I want it like this. Maybe I want it like that. Maybe I want it like this one, depending. So everything that you're going to have later, whatever you're going to draw, maybe something that looks a little bit different, you can go in and apply to it any kind of a profile. It will remember the profile. It doesn't remember the stroke size, but it will remember the profile. Does that make sense? And you can do a lot of fun stuff. So if you have all kind of symbols, like the hands that I show you, that you want to trace, maybe you want to have them in different kind of things. So now right away, I'm going to not draw behind. And I'm going to go into the reference, and I'm going to have something that maybe looks like this. Before doing anything, maybe I want to go into my rectangle, this one, and I might go in and make it bevel and emboss, and that's way too much. So maybe I want to make that the no smoking that looks like this. It's kind of weird, but I can also go in and change a little bit the angle, and then you can see I gave it a little depth. And why didn't I do it together? Because I don't wanted the cigarette to do with a different depth. So I might go to the cigarette later. I just did it to the sign. I might even go and click OK and just go to the sign, to the symbol, and just put the sign as a symbol. Because maybe it's going to be don't, and it's going to be don't go, don't walk, don't whatever it is. Does that make sense? So I have my symbols and I have my presentation, right? So let's say, pretend we did the rest of the stuff. I'm going to zoom in. And let's say you wanted to present it. So in this case, and in this version in 2019 and up, you can basically go all the way down to your toolbox, and you have normal screen view, full screen. You have something new called presentation mode. And then you can go in and start presenting. These are the two that I didn't do, but you see that's my beginning of the presentation. Before even making it into a PDF, you can show somebody the presentation. Does that make sense? Which is really cool. Another thing that you can do here, of course, you can go in and make that as a PDF. So let's pretend that I'm going to bring another symbol, so I'm not going to have it empty. So I might go into this symbol, which is a flower, and means nothing to something that we have, or the other shapes that I did. Can I bring other symbols from here? Absolutely. So I can go into, let's say, the logo element are terrible, but maybe the maps are cool. So I can go back here to this symbol and bring it here. Look how tiny it is. I can go back here and make it a little bit bigger. And if this one is really boring, guess what I can do with it? I don't want this one. And that looks kind of weird. So I'm going to select that. And I'm going to go and bring another one. You have a map symbols over here. And then I can go in here and do, let's say, the camping. They are tiny, but because they are vector, you can do anything you want with it. So I can go in and go into 3D and extrude and bevel. And I can do one. I can do another one here, and I can do extrude and bevel. And then, of course, this, guys, you can save it in your style panel. We didn't have time to do that, but if you open your window and your graphic style, and you have it in the PDF that I gave you, I can go in, let's say, to this graphic style, to this one, and say new graphic style, and it is going to do that as a graphic style. So anything that I'm going to bring here, let's say even if I bring here the airplane for a minute, and I'm going to go in and make it like bigger. As soon as I click on it, look at that. So you can start saving your graphic style, and it's going to go also on type. So if you want to do a title, it's going to be on the title. So think about, you start with something, and then you go into symbolizing it if you want to do it all over the place, and then you go in and styling it. Everything can change. Basically, I can even go to this symbol, and then I can double click, I can go back here to this symbol, and I'm going to go and select it, and I know I have the style to it. So if I'm going to go to my appearance panel, I know I'm jumping, but you have it. I can go in again to your extrude and bevel. You can go in the preview. You can also map it. And what can you map it with? You can map it with other symbols. Does that make sense? How cool is that? So any other symbol, maybe I don't want this one, I want to map it with this. Or I want to map it with code. And then that's it. So you can map it with that, and basically it is going to be there. And believe it or not, because it is a symbol, if I'm going to change what I mapped it with, it will change it again on the other one. So they're all like talking to each other. So what I recommend, and I gave you a lot of samples, start creating stuff based on the project you're going to do. Something you're going to trace and something you're going to build yourself, depending. But now, let's say if I have it here, and I'm going to do you see here? Now I can see, now I'm going to show somebody, and then I can save it as a PDF, I can add title to it, I can do a title to the entire presentation, and things like this. So just things for you to pay attention to before we leave. When you're looking at the symbols, if you want to start using them or make your own, let's say I told you that you have, let's say, organization charts. There's some of them are kind of like weird looking, but you can make them your own because they were done from symbols. So you can double click and then click and then edit the symbol, and then you can click on it, and it's going to open for you your appearance panel, and you can start changing the stuff that you have. So that was just a gradient underneath it, but maybe I didn't want to do that, and I want to go in and put another one, and you can start changing and changing and changing, and everything is going to change. So you can go in, or you can just say, you know what, I'm breaking it, and I'm going to make it my own. But you have the beginning there, so you can start doing all kind of organization charts. I use these guys for so many things, but I just play with them and make them. So look at this one. That could be some story about something without you working so hard, but change it to your own. Because it is a symbol, you can go and say edit symbol, and then each one is a symbol, and then you can start playing with it. If I'm going to go into my appearance panel, which we didn't have time to go with it, look at this. It's basically telling you what somebody did. So I'm going to say I don't want to have a stroke, and I don't want to have a stroke, and I don't want to have a stroke. And over here I don't want to have that, and I don't want to have that, and I just want to have a simple color. And then if I click here, look at that. Now I have a regular one, and I can start doing and working with it. Does that make sense? So you can start moving into it, and let's say I want to click on that, and then I am going to go in and make that some kind of corners and all kind of stuff, so I can go in and add a style to it, and then maybe I'm going to go into some round corners and go in and play with it, or I can go in and put another style in it, which is not something that I wanted, but let's say I did that. I can even go in now and say stop. of course you know what's going to happen, right? So you can put it together just to know you have the same style, but then you're going to break the link and put something else in it. At least you're aligning your type. Does that make sense? Any questions? There's a lot of options for you guys. You can see it. And this is why, if we go back to that, I really prepared for you all this one. And you can really go in, because we jump from one place to another and concentrated in symbols and drawing some stuff. But a lot of stuff is here. The appearance panel, the artboard, the colors, working with the appearance, creating different kind of shapes, even tracing, working with your stroke panel. All these one are there for you to start working. So you take advantage of all the stuff that we have here, and I have a lot of symbols there, so you can see that you can go and read whatever you have. Does that make sense? I'm also going to go